The first thing that hits you is the smell. Not coal. Reuben Flack knows coal, has known it since he was 14, hauling it from barges on the Lambeth docks into carts that carried it to breweries and bakeries and the houses of people who could afford to be warm. Coal smells of the earth it came from. Familiar, domestic, something your grandmother's parlor smells like. If the untold stories of the people who lit up the darkness fascinate you, subscribe now. What happens next in this gasworks will change how you see every streetlight. This is different. The air inside the Great Peter Street gasworks smells of something coal becomes when you do violence to it. When you seal it inside a cast iron tube and heat it for 5 hours until the coal itself breaks apart, gives up its volatile spirits in a surrender of gas and tar and sulfur and ammonia, the gas that comes out of the retort pipe has a sweetness underneath the stink, a cloying chemical sweetness that makes Reuben's throat tighten and his eyes water. Everything wants to breathe if you let it. Reuben says this to himself as he stands in the retort shed, looking at the 3 iron tubes, 8 feet long, 3 feet in diameter, sealed at one end, mounted in brick furnaces glowing cherry red at the seams. The retorts expand when hot, contract when cold, make sounds like sighing, like something alive, trapped in iron, exhaling what it can't keep. Frederick Winsor hired him 3 days ago. Winsor is the German promoter who obtained the royal charter for the Westminster Gas, Light and Coke Company. A man with round cheeks, excited hands, and a vision so enormous it borders on derangement. He wants to light Westminster Bridge with coal gas. An entire bridge, lit not by whale oil or tallow or beeswax, but by invisible gas pumped through iron pipes from a brick shed 2 streets away. Reuben doesn't understand gas. Nobody does, really. Not in the way you understand coal or candles. Gas is invisible. You can't hold it, can't weigh it in your hand, can't see it until you set fire to it. And setting fire to invisible air pumped through iron pipes seems yampy is the word Reuben doesn't use because he's South London, not black country. But the sentiment is right. It seems like the kind of idea that gets men killed. But the wages are 15 shillings a week, twice what he earned heaving coal on the docks. And the alternative is going back to the docks, where the cold water gets into your joints and the coal dust gets into your lungs and the foreman gets into your pay. So Reuben stands in the retort shed, breathing chemistry he can't name, and watches the gasworks come alive around him. The system works like this. Coal goes into the retort through a door at the sealed end. The door is clamped shut with iron bolts and a gasket of compressed rope and clay. Fire heats the retort from below. Over 5 hours, the coal bakes, not burns, bakes, releasing gas through a pipe at the top. The gas travels to a purification tank filled with lime water, which removes the sulfur. Clean gas then passes into the gasometer, a 12-foot iron tank floating in a water-sealed brick pit. The water seal keeps the gas in. The tank rises as gas fills it, sinks as gas leaves through the mains. Simple in principle, monstrous in practice. Every joint in every pipe is a potential leak. Every leak is a potential explosion. The gasometer pit is a potential death trap. If the water level drops, the seal breaks, and the shed fills with gas that a single spark will ignite. The retort itself operates at temperatures that turn iron cherry red and make the air shimmer. One failed gasket, one cracked retort, one moment of inattention, and the whole system converts from gasworks to bomb. Aldous Crabbe watches from across Great Peter Street. He's been the parish lamplighter here for 30 years, a thin man with a 10-foot wick pole who walks the streets at dusk, lighting whale oil lamps by reaching up and touching flame to wick. He's good at it. His father was good at it. The lamps dim and gutter and blow out in wind and give about as much light as a dying firefly, but they're his lamps, his trade, his identity. Gaslighting will kill his trade. He knows this. Everyone knows this. Winsor talks about lighting entire streets. Not one lamp every 50 yards, but continuous illumination from one end to the other. If gas works, lamplighters become unnecessary. If gas works, Aldous Crabbe becomes a memory. Reuben opens the retort door for the first time. Not to charge it, just to look. The interior glows dull orange, the residual heat from the last bake still radiating from the clay lining. The smell that comes out is raw coal gas, undiluted, unpurified, thick enough to taste. Reuben's head swims. His vision blurs at the edges. He steps back, and the outside air hits his lungs like cold water. At 7 that evening, Winsor lights a test burner in the shed, a small brass nozzle connected to the gasometer by a rubber hose. He turns the valve. Gas hisses. He strikes a flint. The flame is blue-white. white. Not the yellow flicker of a candle, not the orange glow of an oil lamp. Blue-white, the color of something pure burning. It throws light in a radius that reaches every corner of the shed. Reuben can see the grain of the brickwork, the bolt heads on the retort clamps, the coal dust on his own boots. By gaslight, the world has detail it didn't have before. He feels the future in his face. The heat of it, the brightness of it, the terrifying newness of it. Something the world hasn't seen before. Darkness, losing. By Wednesday, Reuben can charge a retort in 11 minutes. Coal in through the door, 200 pounds per charge, shoveled from the heap, spread level with the stoking iron, gasket seated, bolts tightened, fire stoked beneath until the retort glows and the gas begins to flow through the top pipe, visible only as a shimmer where it exits into the purifier. He doesn't understand the chemistry, doesn't know that coal contains hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, methane, ethylene, a catalog of volatile compounds that separate when heated in the absence of air. What he knows is craft. The coal must be spread evenly, too thick on one side and it bakes unevenly, producing gas that sputters and stinks. The fire must be steady, too hot and the retort cracks, too cool and the coal won't decompose fully, leaving a charge of half-baked coke that has to be dug out with a hook. He knows the gas by smell. Good gas, properly purified, sulfur removed, smells faintly of coal with a chemical edge. Bad gas smells of rotten eggs. The sulfur smell means the lime water in the purifier is exhausted, and the gas going into the gasometer is dirty. It'll burn yellow instead of blue-white, and the flame will eat the brass nozzles in days instead of weeks. The gasometer is the part that frightens him. The iron tank sits in its brick pit filled with Thames water. Brown, silt-heavy water that never looks clean no matter how recently they've changed it. The tank floats on this water like a massive iron boat. As gas fills the space beneath the tank, it rises. As gas leaves through the mains, it sinks. The water seal around the rim is what keeps the gas inside. If the water level drops, evaporation, a crack in the pit wall, a drain they didn't notice, the seal breaks. Gas escapes into the shed. Coal gas is lighter than air. It rises, it collects in the ceiling beams, and it waits. For a spark from the retort furnace, for the friction of iron tools, for the lantern someone carries through the door without thinking. Thursday morning, 4 o'clock. Reuben is charging the third retort. The shed is hot. The furnaces keep the temperature above 70 degrees even in January. And the gasometer is 3/4 full, the iron tank riding high in its pit. Reuben tightens the last bolt on the retort door and hears nothing. That's wrong. The gasometer pump, a hand-cranked mechanism that assists the water seal, makes a rhythmic clank every 4 seconds. Clank, clank, clank. It's the heartbeat of the gasworks. Reuben has been hearing it for 10 days straight, and now it's stopped. He walks to the gasometer pit, looks over the edge. The water level is low, 6 inches below the rim of the tank. The seal is broken. He can't see the gas because gas is invisible, but he can smell it. That sweet chemical smell, stronger than it should be, filling the shed from the top down because gas rises. And it's been rising into the wooden ceiling beams for however many minutes the pump has been stopped. Two things happen simultaneously. Reuben opens his mouth to shout a warning, and Brennan, a laborer working the far retort, opens the furnace door to stoke the fire, releasing a spray of sparks into an atmosphere that's now 4% coal gas and falling. The explosion isn't large. Later, the engineer will call it a deflagration, gas burning rapidly but not detonating. It feels large. The air in the upper shed ignites with a sound like a giant sheet of canvas being torn. A flat, percussive whump that pushes Reuben sideways and blows the shed door off its hinges. No fireball, no destruction, just a wave of hot air, a flash of blue light across the ceiling, and then silence. Reuben is on the floor. His ears are ringing. The shed is dark. The flash burned off the gas in the air, and the remaining atmosphere is smoke and the tang of burned coal vapor. Brennan is standing at the furnace, frozen, hands still on the stoking iron, face black with soot, eyebrows notably absent. Someone, one of the laborers outside, yells through the broken doorway, "Are we going to die?"
Not today. Probably. I'm about 70% sure.
Nobody laughs. The percentage is about right. Winsor arrives within the hour. Red-faced, breathing hard from running, eyes scanning the damage, shed door gone, ceiling beams scorched, gasometer tank sitting crooked in its pit where the explosion nudged it sideways. The retorts are undamaged. The gas mains are intact. The water in the gasometer pit is now level with the tank rim again. Someone had the presence of mind to pump water back in while the gas was still burning off. That someone was Ruben. He doesn't remember doing it, but his hands are raw from the pump handle, and the water level is correct, and nobody else was close enough. His body did it while his brain was still processing the fact that the ceiling had been on fire. Winsor asks if he'll stay. The question is quiet. No enthusiasm, no grand vision. Just one man asking another if he's going to keep working in a building that just tried to kill him. Ruben looks at the gasometer, at the pit, at the water level that dropped because nobody was checking it regularly, at the pump that stopped because nobody assigned someone to maintain it. These aren't design failures, they're management failures. They're fixable, not by engineers who design systems on paper, by stokers who check water levels and listen for pumps and smell the difference between good gas and bad gas.
We fix it. We fix it and we don't stop.
February. The gasworks runs now with Ruben's protocols, a word he wouldn't use but describes what he's built. Check the water level every hour, listen for the pump, smell the air at the ceiling beams before opening any furnace door. Charge the retorts in rotation so at least one is always sealed and cold, reducing the chance of multiple retort failure. Simple rules, the kind of rules that only exist because someone almost died. The gasometer is still wrong. Not dangerously wrong. Ruben's water checks prevent any repeat of the seal failure, but thermally wrong. The iron tank, Ruben has noticed, expands in the afternoon when the sun warms the shed roof and contracts at night when the temperature drops. The expansion is small, a fraction of an inch, but the water seal around the rim is designed for a fixed tank diameter. When the tank expands, the seal tightens. When it contracts, the seal loosens. At 3 in the morning, when the contraction is greatest and the tank is fullest and the gas pressure is highest, the seal weeps. Not enough to cause another deflagration, but enough to fill the shed with the sweet coal smell that makes Ruben's head swim. He thinks about the retorts, how they breathe, expand when hot, contract when cold. Everything wants to breathe, if you let it. The gasometer is the same. Iron is the same everywhere, regardless of shape. It moves with temperature. The engineer who designed the water seal designed it for one temperature. The gasworks exists at all temperatures. The solution is obvious to Ruben, opaque to the engineer. You don't make a seal that fights the iron, you make a seal that moves with it. Fill the gap between tank and pit not with rigid packing, but with a layer of tallow grease floating on the water, a film that deforms when the iron moves and reseals when the movement stops. Self-healing. The way a puddler's slag blanket self-heals over molten iron in a puddling furnace. Ruben learned this from puddling. Not that he was a puddler. He hauled coal for puddlers back on the docks, but he watched them. Watched the slag on the surface of the molten iron close over any break, any bubble, any disturbance. A floating blanket that never fails because it isn't rigid. It flows. He tries it, renders 2 pounds of beef tallow, borrowed from the butcher on Marsham Street, and pours it onto the gasometer water in a thin film. The tallow solidifies into a flexible skin. When the iron tank contracts at 3 in the morning, the tallow deforms, filling the gap. When the tank expands in the afternoon, the tallow compresses. No weeping, no sweet smell. The gasometer, for the first time since it was built, holds a perfect seal around the clock. The engineer expresses surprise. Ruben expresses nothing. He's not a man who claims credit, but Dorcas notices the change. She tells him over supper, soup and bread, their table, their 2 rooms above a saddler shop on Marsham Street, you walk different since the gasworks, like you know something.
I'm just the stoker, Dorce. I feed the ovens.
You fixed the seal that the engineer couldn't fix. You're not just anything.
She's right, and he's not ready to hear it, not yet. Being just the stoker is comfortable. It means the responsibility sits elsewhere. If the gasworks fails, it's the engineer's fault. If the bridge doesn't light, it's Winsor's problem. The moment Ruben accepts that his knowledge matters, he accepts that the gasworks' success or failure is partly his. Ruben standing in a gasworks at midnight, covered in coal dust, about to light a bridge. If that image doesn't make you subscribe, the next chapter will. Westminster Bridge has never been lit before. It's about to be. Crab comes by on a Tuesday evening. He's finishing his lamplighter rounds. Wick pole over his shoulder, whale oil can in his other hand, stands outside the gasworks and watches through the broken doorway. They never replaced the door the explosion blew off.
You're going to light a bridge with explosive air from baked coal?
That's the plan, yes?
I'll watch from a safe distance. Which is to say, Surrey.
Reuben doesn't laugh, but something shifts in his mouth. Not a smile, just the ghost of one. The expression of a man who's heard a joke about the thing that almost killed him and found it useful. Crab isn't being cruel. He's being honest. The bridge lighting might go wrong. The pipes might leak. The gas might not reach the lamps with enough pressure to sustain a flame. Or it might work perfectly, and Crab's 30-year livelihood will end on a Wednesday evening in winter. The system is ready. 3 retorts charged and baking. The gasometer full, the tallow seal holding perfectly. The iron mains running beneath Great Peter Street, across Abingdon Street, and on to Westminster Bridge. 12 lamp standards fitted with Winsor's patent burner nozzles, each connected to the main by a branch pipe with an individual valve. Tomorrow night. The evening of the demonstration. The sky is overcast, which is perfect. Cloud cover means no moonlight. Westminster Bridge will be lit only by gas. No competition from the heavens. Winsor has invited the press, 3 members of parliament, and anyone else who will stand on a bridge in February darkness next to pipes full of explosive gas. Reuben is at the gasworks. The retorts are running, all 3, staggered at 2-hour intervals, producing a continuous flow of purified gas into the gasometer. The tank is riding high, the tallow seal intact, the pressure steady. He can feel the system's readiness in the vibration of the pipes under his hand. A faint hum, the sound of gas moving through iron at pressure, heading toward the bridge. Dorcas walks with him to the bridge. She doesn't usually come to the gasworks or anything connected with it. The explosion frightened her, and the smell reminds her daily that her brother works with something that can kill him. But tonight she wants to see. She wants to walk across Westminster Bridge and see it. Because every evening for 5 years, she's walked home from the laundry on Back Lane through streets so dark she navigates by counting her footsteps. 217 steps from the laundry door to the saddler's shop on Marsham Street. She doesn't need to see the way because she's memorized it, but she shouldn't have to memorize it. At the bridge, Winsor is addressing the small crowd. His German accent thickens with excitement. Epoch-making demonstration and revolutionary illumination, and phrases that mean everything to him and nothing to the shivering journalists. Reuben ignores the speech. He's at the first lamp standard, checking the valve connection, smelling for leaks. His nose, his coal gas-educated nose, is the most sensitive instrument in the gasworks inventory. Clean, no sulfur, no sweet chemical smell. The gas reaching the bridge is purified, pressurized, and ready. Reuben walks the length of the bridge, checking each lamp, 12 in total. Valve connections tight, nozzles clear. The gas hisses faintly at each lamp, the sound of pressure waiting to become light. He reaches the 7th lamp and stops, sniffs. There, so faint that only a man who's been breathing this stuff for 2 months would catch it. The sweet smell. A leak. At the pipe joint where the branch meets the main. Not large, not dangerous, but gas escaping from a pipe on a public bridge where 100 people are standing, some of them smoking clay pipes. The leak is a thread of gas escaping from a lead solder joint that's contracted in the cold. Reuben needs to tighten it. He needs a spanner. He doesn't have a spanner. What he has is his hands. His calloused, burn-scarred stoker's hands. And the knowledge that lead solder, properly warmed, becomes malleable enough to reshape by finger pressure. He cups his hands around the joint, breathes on it. His breath, warm and moist in the February air, condenses on the cold lead. He presses with his thumbs, hard, steady, the way you'd press pastry into a tin, and feels the solder yield. The sweet smell fades. The hiss stops. The joint holds. Winsor gives the signal. Reuben walks back to the first lamp, takes a lighting taper, a long wooden splint tipped with sulfur, and holds it to the nozzle. He turns the valve. The gas catches. The flame is blue-white, not yellow, not orange, not the dim gutter of whale oil or the warm flicker of beeswax. Blue-white, the color of something pure, burning clean, throwing light 30 feet in every direction. The bridge appears. That's the only word for it. One moment there's darkness, the parapet invisible, the roadway felt by the feet but not seen by the eyes, the river below existing only as sound and smell. The next moment, light. Stone balustrades sharp-edged and solid. Pedestrians with faces, not shadows, faces, with expressions and eye color and the particular detail of being human and visible and present. Ruben walks the bridge, lighting lamps. 1, 2, 3. Each ignition pushes the darkness further back. By the 6th lamp, the bridge is half lit, a corridor of blue-white visibility cutting through the London night like a blade. By the 12th, Westminster Bridge is the brightest place in England that isn't on fire. The crowd makes a sound. Not applause, that comes later. Before applause, there's a collective intake of breath, a gasp. The sound of 100 people seeing something they've never seen before and needing a moment to reorganize their understanding of what night is. Ruben watches from the Lambeth side. He can see Dorcas on the bridge, not as a shadow, not as a sound of footsteps, but as a woman, a visible, illuminated, seen woman walking across Westminster Bridge at 8 o'clock on a February evening without counting her steps. She's looking around her, at the parapet, at the river, visible now, reflecting the gas flames in long orange streaks, at the other pedestrians, at the sky. She can hear her footsteps and see them. She doesn't need to count anymore. Crab is standing on the Surrey side, wick pole over his shoulder, whale oil can at his feet, watching. His face shows something complicated, the expression of a man seeing the end of his world and finding it beautiful. He won't say so. He'll walk home tonight and light his whale oil lamps the way he's always done, and tomorrow, and the day after. But the lamps are dimmer than they were this morning. Not technically dimmer, still the same oil, the same wick, the same flame, but dimmer in the mind, where comparisons live. The lamplighters don't disappear overnight. Gas takes decades to replace oil in London streets. Crab dies at 71, still lighting his lamps, still carrying his wick pole, still walking his rounds. But the lamps he lights are the last generation. His craft, his father's craft, ends with him. Ruben stays at the gasworks, becomes the head stoker, then the works foreman, then the man other gasworks send for when their systems fail and their engineers can't figure out why. He never learns the chemistry, never reads a textbook, doesn't need to. His nose knows good gas from bad. His palm knows iron temperature. His thumbs know lead solder. The clever men design the system. Ruben keeps it breathing. On the night Westminster Bridge lit up, a figure stood in the darkness between the 7th and 8th lamps. For 2 seconds, while Ruben tightened the leaking joint and the flame guttered, the figure was visible in shadow. When the light returned, it was gone. Nobody on the bridge mentioned it. Nobody saw it. But the darkness that surrounded London for 10,000 years had been watching the bridge too. And it knew, the way Aldous Crab knew, the way the whale oil lamps knew, that it was being replaced. Not quickly, not completely, but permanently. From coal, through fire, into gas, into light. The secret of London gaslighting wasn't the gas. It wasn't the retorts or the gasometer or the iron pipes. The secret was a stoker named Ruben Flack, who checked the water level every hour, smelled the ceiling for leaks, and fixed a lead joint with his thumbs on the coldest night of the year. The engineers designed the system. The stoker kept it alive. And the darkness, 11 centuries of London darkness, lost.